Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog. So, this is going to be the first reading vlog in sort of like a TBR Takedown kind of series, which of course is not an original idea. Many people have been doing this and calling it TBR Takedown, but basically I'm sitting here with my physical TBR because I've decided I really want to focus on reading books off of there, especially before buying new ones, and especially after moving from a totally different state. Like, I really have to assess the situation and be like, do I need this many books that I haven't read yet? So recently, after moving, I just put together my physical TBR cart and I uploaded a video with that, and I counted how many books I had on my TBR in that video, and it came out to 47 books on my TBR cart. Since then, I accidentally stumbled upon a used bookstore near me and ended up getting 3 books to add to my TBR, so that brought the number up to 50. So now we are going to focus on reading those, and I am going to have a book buying ban. I don't buy books a whole lot, but I figure it makes sense to set a goal. So if my physical TBR right now is 50, I'm thinking 30 books. Once I get it down to 30, then I can start acquiring more books for the physical TBR. So there are a few on here that I know I'm going to read for videos. There's a couple that I know I'm going to read later this year, like Salem's Lot, for example. I know I will be reading in October, so it's really a little bit less than 50 what we have to work with. But I want to do some reading vlogs, so you'll probably be seeing a few of those come out as I'm reading more of my physical TBR. But to kick us off, I thought maybe we would start strong and get some 5-star predictions. So I have pulled 3 books off of my physical TBR that I really do think could be 5 stars. So we're gonna go through those and then we're gonna get reading. So the first one that I pulled off is the Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. I think this could be a 5-star because Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay was a 5-star for me. That was my top book of last year, and I see a lot of people compare the two. So I have high hopes for this one. The next one that I pulled off is Artemis by Addie Weir, and pretty similarly, Project Hail Mary is one of my favorite books ever. I also gave The Martian by Addie Weir 5 stars, so I feel like another Addie Weir has potential to be a 5-star. So we'll see how that one goes. And then the last one is kind of a random pull because I've never read from this author before, but I have heard so many good things about this book. It is a very well-loved book, and from watching reading vlogs and reading reviews and seeing other people react to this book, I feel like I'm going to love it, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So those are the 3 books from my physical TBR that I will be putting to the test this week, hoping that they will be 5 stars, but only future me will know the answer to that question. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reading vlog. Hopefully the camera battery doesn't die on me, but I've started the first book. I decided to go with Artemis by Addie Weir for really no reason except that this was calling to me, and now I don't know if it was the right decision. First of all, I don't know if it's the right decision because this was pretty much the most recent addition to my physical TBR. This is one of the 3 books that I got at that used bookstore, so I literally just added it onto my TBR not even a week ago, and now I'm reading it. But the other reason why I'm not sure if it was the greatest choice is because a little over 100 pages in, I already know that it's not going to be a 5-star. I'm still enjoying the book. It's just like the main character I'm not the biggest fan of. I feel like she's a little bit annoying. But this book, our main character is Jazz, a woman, which is different from what Addie Weir has written before. This is his first like female main character perspective, but she lives on the moon in a lunar colony called Artemis, and she works a very low-paying job. She has a complicated relationship with her father. Her mom is not really in the picture, and she is just trying her best to make it, and she has this big idea that she wants to be rich, she wants to be wealthy, and she just has grand plans for herself. But she is working, like I said, a low paying delivery job, and then the environment is strange as well because the lunar colony, like a lot of the residents there are very, very wealthy and own a lot of property, and then it's also like a very popular kind of wealthy tourist spot. People from Earth that will travel up to explore the moon. So that is kind of the setup. But one of the ways that Jazz kind of supplements her income is by doing some stuff on the side, a little bit shady. She primarily does like a lot of smuggling, so things that are illegal on the moon, she will smuggle in shipments from Earth for people that will pay her for her services. And then one day she is approached by like one of her biggest customers, her regular routine customers that she smuggles stuff in for, and he offers her a very, very high paying job of like pulling off this heist. And so now that is what we are in the midst of, is following her as she is pulling off her master plan, her get rich quick scheme. And I am really, really interested in that plot. I think that, I don't know, I just find it really, really interesting to see the problem that she is faced with and how she's approaching it, and of course all of the problems that arise with that, and just like kind of the what is the word, like just the method, the procedure to like the step-by-step of everything that she's doing and why she's doing it, I think is really interesting. But just her as a character, I feel like she's kind of annoying. I definitely think Andy Weir, like he has a specific type of character that he writes, a kind of like witty, like smart ass type of person, and Jazz is the same way. But I don't know, I just don't like, I don't know, it's just there's a couple moments I'm like, that's kind of cringe, that's a little annoying. And then there was also like this weird thing that like, we've got people from all over Earth here, different cultures have very different sexual morals, so Artemis doesn't have age of consent rules at all. As long as it's not forced, it's not rape. What? What? I don't know, that's giving me a weird vibe. But the actual heist plot I'm really interested in, and I'm kind of surprised because it's not, like, that's why I've put this book off for so long, is because I remember reading the synopsis and being like, well, I like Andy Weir, but this doesn't seem like the type of sci-fi that I'm really interested in. And so I am surprised that I am so, like, caught up in everything that's happening, and especially, like, the part that I just stopped at, I'm like, what's gonna happen now? I need to know, and I wasn't expecting to get that invested in it. So I'm enjoying the plot, I'm enjoying like the setting of it with the lunar colony. I think is really interesting and very well explained. I can picture it very well, and that might just be because there is like an illustration at the beginning of what the colony looks like, but I like the way that the setting and the atmosphere is being described, and I'm enjoying following the shenanigans that Jazz is getting into, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jazz herself. So I'm gonna keep reading a little bit before bed because, like I said, I need to know what just happens after the last chapter that I read. And then I will update you guys later. I don't think it'll be 5 stars, but we'll see what happens. I am back to say that I have now finished Artemis, and my enjoyment in it did kind of fizzle out by the end of the book. I just felt, I don't know, not really as invested anymore the more that it went on, and just not liking the main character made me not feel that excitement and enjoyment to pick up the book and enjoy while I was reading the book. It's 305 pages, but for some reason it felt like so much longer by the time like we were actually in the final chapters and everything was getting wrapped up. I just feel like, I don't know, I was kind of checked out by that point, and I just don't really know how to feel about this one. As I previously mentioned, it is different from what I would typically read as far as sci-fi goes. There were some things that I did enjoy, and I was pretty invested for the first half, but I very quickly stopped caring, especially because of the main character, and there were so many things within this book that were just kind of cringe, and then a lot of things that didn't really make sense to me. I know I mentioned in the last update like that quote about the age of consent. There's no age of consent on the moon, and there's no like legal drinking age, and anybody can pretty much drink and like whatever, but then it's also like a super safe community where crime never happens, and you don't really have to have like laws and like the police because nothing really happens. But I'm like, I don't know, to me in my head that doesn't add up, and it kind of seems like there were a few things that were just kind of like thrown in there to make it seem more quirky and fun of a environment, and I don't know, it just kind of felt a little bit strange, some pieces in here, and some of the dialogue was very, very odd, and a little bit cringeworthy at moments. That's pretty much all I have to say about Artemis. I think landing on a 3-star rating. Definitely not the 5-star that I predicted it would be. Really, I was only going based off of the author for that, and once I kind of got into the book and figured out what it was, I kind of figured it would be a 5-star. So we're gonna move on to the next one that is also kind of a pick based off of the author. This is the Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. So like I said, I've heard a lot of things about this. This is definitely one of those books that people either love it or they hate it, and I see a lot of people compare it to his other book, Horror Movie. People say that if you loved Horror Movie, you will most likely love the Pallbearers Club, and vice versa. If you hate one, then you'll most likely hate the other. So seeing as that I was one of the few people that loved Horror Movie, that was my #1 book from last year, I think that I have a pretty good chance of enjoying this one. So we're gonna take the dust jacket off. That's how you know it's getting serious. And I'm gonna start reading the Pallbearers Club. Here is my cutesy little bookmark that I pulled out for this one. I don't even know where I got this. So I'm back with an update that my next 5-star prediction is very much so on the way to be a 5-star, or at least a high 4. That is the vibes that I am getting right now, almost 100 pages through the Pallbearers Club. So let me tell you a little bit about what this is about first, okay? So the book is a memoir written by the character that we're following. His name is Art, and like I said, he is writing this memoir, but then we also have another character named Mercy who is reading the draft of this memoir, and she is annotating it as she reads. So throughout the book, there are all of these little underlines and annotations, notes in the margins, and then after it seems like after each chapter we get kind of like a page or a few written from this character. So Art is telling us this story of when he was in high school. That's at least as far as I am. It's just been following him in his high school and his teen years, and he is kind of this like nerdy kid. He's got scoliosis, he's very, very skinny, he's got acne, and he's just kind of like bullied and kind of an outcast. So to get a better looking college application and get some extracurriculars, he decides to start up a club at his school called the Pallbearers Club. The whole idea of this club is that they will go to funerals and act as like pallbearers and or attendees for funerals in which the people won't have a lot of people attending. So that is how Art meets Mercy, is through this club. Side note, I think this is a really fun idea for a club, and I feel like if my school had a club like that, I would probably join, because I don't know, I just really like the idea of that. But Mercy is a little bit older than Art. She is mentioned to be in community college, and she connects with Art because he kind of posts flyers for this club all over. It's not just limited to the school. So the two of them pair up, and they are the only two currently in this club, and they start to form a friendship, and that is what the bulk of the story is about so far. And I think that's definitely how it's going to continue for the rest of the story, is that it's going to be focused on the characters and their relationship to one another. And I feel like that is pretty much in line with Horror Movie, and why maybe these two books didn't really work for a lot of people is because they are focused on that friendship. And if you pick up this book expecting a horror book, like that's not what you're gonna get. And I feel like that's the same with horror movie. Like, yes, there's horror, but at the core of it, like, it's about the characters and the way they relate to one another. One of the things that stands out to me the most so far in this book right now is the setting of it, because what we are reading about, the events that took place that Art is recounting in his memoir when he was in high school, takes place in the late 80s. So that has been really fun because there are constantly different references to the time, and it kind of is just adding this really good vibe and atmosphere to the story. It's also kind of giving me like fall vibes, and I know some of it so far has taken place technically in winter, but I feel like fall/winter would be a good time to read this book. But it's also fun because Mercy is like into punk music, and so we are constantly getting references to like albums and artists and different songs, and that's been really fun as well, especially seeing Art and Mercy grow their friendship, and he starts to get into punk a little bit and starts to change like the way he dresses, and kind of become a punk himself. And I think that is just so well done. Like, I don't know, it's really exuding that like late 80s, early 90s punk kind of grunge scene, and I'm really enjoying that so far. I'm enjoying the characters, I'm enjoying their relationship to each other, and then it also has me like hooked. Like, I am so into this book because there's also another element to it. So I have heard people talk about this book, and it is kind of vaguely about vampires, but there is kind of a mystery going on because Mercy and Art right now are currently researching some local history for one of Art's projects, and they are uncovering more things, and we know that Mercy has a secret. There's something going on with Mercy that has been alluded to a few times by Art, so the story is slowly unfolding, and we are getting a lot of their friendship and relationship, and I am just absolutely loving it so far. I love the writing, I love the vibes, I love the characters, and I'm so interested to see where the plot goes. So my plan is to finish this tonight. It is a little less than 300 pages, so maybe that's ambitious, but I feel like I could do it because like I'm so invested in this. I just want to finish it. I'm back with some updates for you guys. So first of all, I finished the Pallbearers Club. It is now like a day or two later, but I decided to give this 4.5 stars. It was very close to being 5 stars, and I think I can now kind of officially say that like Paul Tremblay is one of my favorite horror authors. I feel like, I don't know, I had a hard time before deciding if I liked his stuff or not, but this one, Horror Movie, and A Head Full of Ghosts were the 3 that I really enjoyed from him. And I think something that they all have in common is that focus on a relationship. Like, yes, they are horror. This one and Horror Movie a little bit less so. I feel like A Head Full of Ghosts is arguably like the most horror out of the 3, but at the root of it, they really do focus on relationships. So this one, of course, is between our main character and his friend Mercy, and we don't really know the whole time if Mercy is a vampire or not. It's kind of like, it's really interesting because you are reading the memoir that Art has written about his life, and he is talking about Mercy and all of the weird kind of supernatural things that have happened and how that's kind of related to her being a vampire. But then you have Mercy coming in and annotating everything and basically like saying, this is not how it happened, this is what actually happened, here's what it was like from my perspective. And then you start to question, okay, which one of these people is telling the truth? are either of them even telling the truth? Is Mercy really a vampire? Is Art making all of this up just to kind of make his memoir seem more interesting? And I just feel like that dynamic, and then also just the way that it really does make you think throughout, was so fascinating. This book also, like, I love the way that it was written. And it also had some really like touching moments. There were a few, I don't even know if you can see it on the camera, but there were a few things that I tabbed because I just liked the way that they were written. But it gets emotional and it touches on grief a little bit, and it almost made me cry at one point towards the end. But the only reason why I'm not giving it 5 stars and I'm instead giving it 4.5 stars is I feel like there was probably a few things that definitely did go over my head, because it's a lot of like very kind of metaphorical writing and what is the word that I'm thinking of? Symbolism. I think that's the word that I'm trying to say. But that's also why getting Mercy's annotations and chapters from her is so fun, because she is really analyzing everything that Art says, because obviously it involves her and she was a part of these moments, but it's so fun to see like her pick up on the subtle messaging throughout the book and be like, he wrote this because he's trying to say this. And I feel like that was really fun and kind of adds like a deeper element and a deeper understanding to the book and to the story. But I definitely do think that there were some things that went over my head a little bit. And it also, like, there were some points where it was a little bit long-winded, and I can definitely understand why people dislike this book, but it worked really, really well for me. I loved it. I love the way that this ended and wrapped up. So I'm landing on 4.5 stars for now. Maybe in the future, if I ever do reread this, it could possibly be a 5-star, because I feel like it'll definitely be one that if you read it again, already knowing the characters and the story and the outcome for the characters, you'll be able to pick up on a lot more of foreshadowing and some of that symbolism like I mentioned. So that was the Pallbearers Club. And then I have my book jacket. Let me put it on the book. I started The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book that I'm reading by V.E. Schwab, although her stuff has kind of intrigued me for a little bit, but back in the day I used to like not pick up anything that was fantasy, and now that I'm kind of getting a little bit more comfortable reading fantasy, I do want to check out more of V.E. Schwab's stuff. But this one is going so well so far. I am 135 pages in and I'm absolutely obsessed with this book. I'm obsessed with the way that it's written and I'm obsessed with the story. This is one that has been out for a few years now and has definitely been all the hype online, so I feel like I don't need to sit here and really explain the plot of this, but basically our main character is Addie. Addie LaRue, short for Adeline, and this is a dual timeline book. So the first timeline takes place in the 1700s, and we have this young woman, Addie, and at the beginning of the book, she is getting married. She is being married off to somebody that she doesn't really want to be with. She wants to have her own freedom and be her own person and do her own thing, but especially with the time period, that's just not really what is expected of women. She's expected to get married and she's expected to have children, and at the time that this marriage is happening, like, it's already late for her. I think she's like 23, and of course, like, if they've been trying to marry her off since she was like 16 or 17, she's definitely late. And she is doing anything that she's can. She's been doing for months, praying to the old gods in this world in order to avoid this marriage and get out of it. And one day, by accident, she kind of ends up making a deal with one of the gods that comes out at night, which are the ones you're supposed to stay away from, because they like to trick people, and there are definitely some dark forces at play there. And so she ends up in a deal with him to get her life and her freedom that she's been seeking. So essentially she can't die, and she, as far as I know, like never ages. But the catch is that no one remembers her. So instantly after this change, like everybody in the village is like completely flipped a switch. Like they don't know who she is, even her parents, her family. Everything's different. And from then on, any person that she encounters, like she can have an interaction with them. She's not invisible, but the second that they like part ways, they forget Addie. So in some ways it's kind of an advantage because, you know, she can kind of get away with stealing things, but it's also a very lonely existence. So we have the present day timeline, which is 2014, and we go back and forth. So essentially she's been living 300 years of this life where nobody can remember her, and I don't know where the story's gonna go beyond that. I think it's kind of going to go into, sorry, I'm just like looking at the, I don't know what happened to this book. It was not like this before. I think maybe when I was moving, like something got messed up with it. There are all these marks on the dust jacket now, and then this, it got ripped down here and dented into the actual hardcover. So I don't know what happened with that. I think it's gonna go, what was I saying, a little bit into kind of a romance territory, but I think it's kind of more just generally about Addie and her story. And like I said, I'm eating it up. I am annotating, kind of tabbing some things in here as well because I'm obsessed with the writing. And like I said, this is my first book by V.E. Schwab, but I get the hype now because some of the descriptors as far as like the language that she uses is so fascinating. Like it's one of those books where it has some sentences where you're like, I would never think to describe this thing in this way, but it makes perfect sense that she does, and the way that she like flows the words together and flows the sentences together and crafts the story is just so captivating and so beautiful, and I'm loving it. So I really don't know where this is gonna go. I could read the synopsis, but I don't want to read the synopsis. But I know, I've heard that this is emotional, this is sad. I kind of have a feeling of like I maybe know where it might go in the end, just based off of the reactions that I've seen people have to the end of it, but I'm fully expecting to cry to this one. And if things continue the way they're going right now, this might be the 5-star for the video. We'll see. I finished my book, and I am so happy to say that we did it. I did it. We did it, Joe. I found my 5-star for the video. This book was just so good. I can't believe it's taken me so long to read this. But from the first moment, like it was just so captivating, and the whole book just had this like quality to it that it just like felt very magical, which of course it's going to because it's a fantasy book, but like even the writing was like magical. I loved the characters so much. All of the characters in here feel like real people, and it's so easy to get so connected to them. It is also one where I feel like the characters and what they are going through is so real and so relatable, I'm sure, for a lot of people, aside from like the whole living for 300 years and making a deal with gods aspect of it. The characters were extremely relatable, extremely lovable, and this was definitely a story that was emotional, which I was expecting going into it, and I totally get it now. But I love the way that this wrapped up, and it did some things that I was not fully expecting as well. Like there was a certain plot point that early on I was like, I can kind of like see it going this way, but I don't think that that's what the book is gonna do. But then it did end up going there, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised by that. But I just think Addie is such a strong character and is such a fun character to follow. And the whole book, the whole concept of the book, of course, is so fun, but then it goes a lot deeper than that, and it really does become a very emotional story that I can definitely understand why people cry to this. And I think it's gonna be one that sticks with me for a long time. I might, I'm gonna let it sink in and kind of reflect on it, but I think it might be an all-time favorite. We'll see. Surprisingly, I don't have much more to say about this except that I loved every single second that I was reading it. And if you are like me and you've kind of procrastinated when it comes to reading this, definitely pick it up. But now I'm very, very excited because I can read more from V.E. Schwab, because like I've mentioned, I have other books by V.E. Schwab on my TBR, but never actually read anything by them yet. So I'm so happy that I loved the story, I loved the writing, I loved the atmosphere, just the tone of the book, and the overall feeling that I got from the story and from reading it was just so magical, and I loved it a whole lot. So that brings us to the end of the reading vlog. I'm glad that I got 2 wins, right? Paul Tremblay and this one were pretty good. Artemis, meh, but I still came out with 2 wins, and I knocked off 3 books for my physical TBR. So we are back where we started with 47 books on the cart, and now I've got some more work to do. And with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.